The research shows that the number one variable that relates to student learning is the quality of the teacher. I suppose in general, one could say, well, you could give this excellent teacher 20 kids in a class or 30 kids in a class, and she's going to cause a lot more learning by the end of the year. That's just how things are. We have a lot of really strong teachers. You probably have some medium teachers. You might have a few weak teachers. But one wonders, with all this extreme pressure to stick to the pacing plan and everybody has to be in lockstep, whether good decisions are being made on an individual basis. Right now, if you're a fourth grade teacher, they give you the fourth grade teacher's manual and the fourth grade materials, and they say, okay, go teach fourth grade. Well, that's dandy if all your students happen to be already on grade level, and then you can just teach from the fourth grade teacher's manual and teach the fourth grade standards. But what a lot of people don't know is that the California Reading and Language Arts Framework says very clearly that reading instruction must be based on assessment of student needs. So if you're teaching fourth grade and you have 3 little students who can't even sound out cat, they don't know the sounds of the letters, they don't know how to blend, they can't even read simple sentences, the sun is hot. Those students are not going to really benefit from those standards-based fourth grade lessons too much, are they? They would really benefit from some small group instruction, some individualized, we used to call it remedial reading. Well, now we might call it intervention. We always have to think up new names, don't we? But do they just need, a little 20 minutes of intervention when the teacher gets the other kids doing, independent work time? That's probably not enough either. So good teaching decisions get made by well-trained professional teachers who are smart and have the freedom. I think we need to give teachers a little more freedom these days to make decisions based on the students in their class. And having said that, I'm all for a good, tight, sequential curriculum. We need to teach them something, and we might as well agree on standards that, we say, okay, these are all the standards for fourth grade, but let's not forget in reading and language arts that you can't just teach fourth grade curriculum and meet everyone's needs. People who ask me, well, what do we do about that? I say, you know what, maybe we need to go back to old-fashioned reading groups. If you have the red birds, the blue birds, and the green birds, and I'm going to teach you where you're at. So.
And going back a little bit, you mentioned standards. The No Child Left Behind Act, introduced by former President George W. Bush and passed in 2002, was criticized because the standards were too low. And now President Obama is planning to upgrade these standards with his college and career-ready standards, which are basically that ensure that by the time a child or a student has graduated high school, they are able to enter the workforce or any career or attend any college. So how will this affect current standards? Well,
actually, as my understanding is that the No Child Left Behind legislation allowed the states to have their own standards. And the real criticism is that certain states had higher standards, and certain states who were worried that they wouldn't look so good, they lowered their standards. And so all across the U.S. we had a wide variety of standards. So I think the idea is being floated, like, wouldn't it be a good idea if we could all agree on some even-steven standards? The fear is that it's just going to be, more of a lockstep, robotic, we teach to the standards. I'd like to temper that a little bit by inviting concerned viewers to go look at California's standards. We are thought to have some of the higher standards across the nation. They're pretty reasonable, really, in my opinion. The standards are pretty reasonable. So it's not that we need to be afraid of standards. I think it's great that we have standards and we teach to standards, and yet we need to remember that if students are not already on grade level, if they haven't achieved the standard, it's not necessarily a good idea to just keep teaching way up here. If they need the support down here, we need to have teachers have the freedom to teach kids where they're at.
Right, and a 1994 federal law required that each state, like you mentioned, have its own standards of what students should know. So it's like at one point it was too low. Now would you say that 16 years later, are they too high or are they just right? Or what would you say, Anna?
I just don't think, there's a right or wrong. I think, like she said, there should be more the same for everybody. California has pretty high standards, but sometimes we get kids from other states and they're, in their report cards they say they're grade level, but they're not grade level according to us because our standards are a little bit higher. So I think that will be a really good idea. If we had similar standards, the kids will be held accountable for at least about the same amount of work or the same amount of skills or abilities, whatever you call it. And I can make for example, in before open court that you mentioned before, the reading program that like the district uses now, you would get a kid in school A using one program, school B using another one. And when the child moved from school A to school B, he had to learn like what the teacher method was of doing the alphabet, let's say lower grades, doing the alphabet, what song they used, what program they used, what was the rotations like. And with open court, the kid moved from school A to school B. He saw the same alphabet, you sang the same song, and so the child came to a more familiar place. And I think if the same happened with the nation standards, kids moving from state to state wouldn't feel afraid of, oops, this seems to be, I haven't seen this. And I mean, these kids are at the same grade, or vice versa, going from a higher state to a lower state and being bored and feeling like, oh my gosh, I already know this. And I'm talking about a grade level student, not everybody's at grade level, but I mean, I think
there are some benefits.
Some benefits to having similar standards.
A lot of people are concerned about standards because they say, oh, standards are bad because then it forces teachers to teach to the test. We've all heard that, right? And you know, what's the point if teachers are just teaching to the test? One little thing I want to suggest is that if you really look at the standards, for example, in reading and language arts, the standards are all about teaching kids to read and comprehend text. So there's really nothing evil in there. So if teachers are teaching to the test in the field of reading and language arts, then they're teaching them how to read. So that's a pretty good thing. And if you were to examine the math standards want students to be able to understand numbers and patterns and, you know, complex calculations and all that math stuff. So if teachers are teaching to the test, then they're teaching all those good math skills as well. I think that the pressure that teachers are experiencing, though, to get those scores up to speed based on punitive threat is really unfortunate.
It's very bad. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's very bad also for the teachers' morale.
Oh,
so
yes.
If they're not happy, I mean, we all know if we're not happy when we're working, it's not. We don't make good decisions, like you said before. We don't use the best reasoning when we're planning what to do. So I think the morale is really important, that teachers feel appreciated to begin with, and they feel that they have a little bit of freedom as to what do I do with a student that it's not moving up with the bulk of my class.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for being here today, and thank you for watching. This is On Point. I'm Jocelyn Bonilla. As parents, how do you feel about the education that your children have received and that yours are receiving right now?
We have 11-year-old twins who attend a fabulous LAUSD magnet school, and it's the Sherman Oaks Center for Enriched Studies. We'll give a plug for the school. It's wonderful, wonderful. Couldn't say enough good things about it. Fabulous teachers, fabulous administrators.
Second grade and kindergarten, attending Sherman Oaks Elementary.
I used to
great
teach
school. Great school. I mean, I couldn't be happier.